like an Egyptian mummy.
It's a grim and controversial murder case that simply refuses to die.
This is one of those cases that will never end. There's always those cases.
But now, M. William Phelps, the investigative author of 35 real-life crime books, takes us inside the Tracy Fortson case. A woman who's either a heartless killer or a scapegoat in a sensational murder mystery.
Not only did she say she was innocent, but that she seemed to be making a case for it, and other people seemed to be making a case for it.
Suggesting Tracy may have had a target on her back the day she broke through. To become the first woman deputy in the history of the Oglethorpe County Sheriff's Office in Athens, Georgia.
So here was a kind of a type A personality female in a man's world.
Her mother, Sharon, was confident Tracy would succeed.
Tracy was a strong person. She told me, you have to be strong and you have to separate yourself from some of the things that you see when you work in law enforcement.
And Tracy, the 35-year-old single mother of a teenage daughter, relished the challenge.
She loved what she was doing. I mean, she loved being a deputy, even though at times I think that environment was difficult for her to thrive in.
It didn't become any easier when Tracy dared to make a stand for women's rights at the sheriff's office.
She believed that she wasn't being paid what the men were being paid in her same position, and she thought that was unfair.
Tracy didn't stop there.
She also started to complain about some of the talk around the office, sexual talk and innuendo and that sort of thing.
And in a phone interview with Crime Watch Daily, Tracy called out one male deputy in particular.
Said something about me being a stripper before I ever came to work at the sheriff's department, which was not true, and he made comments that he had pictures of me with two men that he never produced.
Tracy says she tried to brush off the harassment as just another one of the hazards of the job.
I worked in a man's world. I mean, I was the only female deputy that worked at the sheriff's department. And I grew up around guys, and I know how guys are.
But she says her boyfriend, Doug Benton, a 38-year-old welder and bodybuilder, wasn't so forgiving.
I should never have come home and said, hey, you know, this was said to me today, or, you know, this was done, or this was insinuated, or whatever. That was my biggest mistake.
Tracy says an angry Doug persuaded her to wear a wire to sting the sheriff's office.
We purchased a mini cassette recorder, and I recorded the sheriff making lewd comments and some of the other guys in the department.
And with that recording in hand, Tracy says Doug convinced her to resign and file a sexual harassment lawsuit against the sheriff's office.
Doug thought I was sitting on a gold mine. He thought there was a lot of money involved. He told me that there would settle out of court.
Tracy says it was difficult to argue with him.
He was right. I had a good case.
But in hindsight, she thinks it may have been a little too good.
She says the embarrassment that brought the sheriff's department really caused the set of dominoes to go into motion here.
The first domino, literally, dropping like a block of cement.
So this is the actual spot where Doug's body was found?
It is.
Encased in a metal horse-feeding trough, found on Roddy Sturdivant's farm by his property manager, Rob Poston.
And it smelled real bad, so we called the sheriff.
Investigators would smash open the cement block and make a horrifying discovery.
We pulled the metal back and we saw a person that was wrapped in several different pieces of material.
And that person would turn out to be none other than Tracy's boyfriend, Doug, who'd been shot and stabbed multiple times.
All over his abdomen area, near his groin area, and in his buttocks.
The ferocity of the murder would lead investigators to believe it was committed by someone close to him.
The fatal wound was a gunshot to the top of the head.
The person who committed this murder wanted to send a message to Doug Benton that, I hate you, I hate you. What you did to me, I can't stand you.
I just knew in my heart that he was gone.
Doug's mother, Carol, fights back tears as she remembers getting the shocking news.
Well, if I think about it much. I get choked up. I can't help it. He was my firstborn. He was important to me.
Now, investigators begin to search for the monster who so grotesquely killed Carol's 38-year-old son.
Doug's friends were polygraphed. Doors were knocked on up and down the street. Questions were asked. People were brought in to the sheriff's department and questioned.
And they all had one thing in common.
They mentioned Tracy.
Next, investigators accuse Tracy of murdering her boyfriend.
It was very hard. I knew what was coming.
But Tracy says nope, claiming her enemies in the sheriff's office set her up.
The good old boys club, I call it. Whether there's true or not is beside the point. Law enforcement is getting these stories and they're following them.